Hey everybody, it's Phone here once again. Hope you're doing well today. I'm rambling about the Rain Technology Maestro. It sounds like this. Okay, Rain Technologies Maestro. So, in the intro jam, I want to just run through it real quickly here. On channel 1, I was running it into the frequency cutoff of the Ghost, which is the end of chain effect. You can hear that again here now in its most extreme form. And I think I'm going to use this for the rest of the video to demonstrate the modulation audibly, just because I feel like that's a really clear way to hear what it's doing. The second channel was going into the Piston Honda, the X table scan, so I'm using a triangle LFO to scan through the wavetables and not using step modulation, so you can really get that Piston Honda grid out of it, which I totally love. And then the third channel, actually I think I could just highlight this here to show what it was doing. It was a random waveform going into the timbre input of the steady state fate, steady state gate, so that you get a little bit of dynamic shifting along the way, that the tones are just a little bit different. I really liked that patch, at least from a modulation perspective. So let's get into what the Maestro itself is now. So recently I did a video on what my dream modulation source would be, and that was kind of in response to ordering the Maestro. As I said, it's hard to compete against PAMs, but in a huge system like this one, it's kind of difficult to get down there, or at least I'm just too freaking lazy to, get down to the bottom of the case and do the menu diving and bring it out to other places. And I love PAMs. It's super useful, super compact, super affordable. But for the big case, I think I just want to step up PAMs' clock division duties, because it's great for that, and then add a modulation source. And in comes the Maestro. There are some things that are missing on it that I discussed in that video, but we're not here to talk about what my dream is. We're here to talk about what the Maestro is. Okay, so go through the panel. Up on the top left, there is clock out and clock in. For me, I would always use Maestro on with an external clock. I know there's a button combo to set the tempos and stuff on here. I don't think there's a tap tempo either, but it is there if that is something you're interested in. It would certainly be the conductor of your system in that regard. But for me, I want to drive everything from my sequencer, and the Maestro is one piece of that. There is outputs for all of the 6 channels. There's also inputs for all of the 6 channels, and I thought that was interesting. Like, I don't know if you're want to internally patch it for like some like polyrhythmic stuff, or you can set this to a one-shot mode. I don't think you actually can do that. Maybe there's a way, but set it to one-shot mode to make like some simple envelopes with it, which I don't know. It just, again, I'm not really sure what the idea behind that is, but we're gonna go through my uses for it here, and maybe we'll touch on that. But that being said, there is 6 channels of modulation, which I love to see that. There's lots. I'm not here to like assess the panel design or anything like that, but I just think it's kind of interesting. You don't often see a module that doesn't have any encoders or sliders, right, completely. So it's interesting to see that big button array, and it works for what it does. It's, I wish there's a screen, as I always wish there's screens on every module, but this definitely gets the job done, and it's pretty cool. What you do get, though, is all of these different channels. So there's channel 1, 2, obviously Roman numerals, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I want to, before I jump into what each channel is capable of. There's sort of a workflow thing here where you can select multiple channels and do things at the same time. So that's like when people say stuff is like performative, I think that sort of is a synonym for immediate often. But in the case of the Maestro, I think it's things like that for live performance, you could like do some build-ups and drops by muting everything in this regard, right? And I just wanted to point that out because I think when you look at videos, holy crap, my whole rig is shaking. When you look at videos of modules like this, it's hard to get a grasp on what the workflow is really like. And I hope a little snippet like that can help demonstrate how the Maestro works. So in demonstrating how the Maestro works, we're going to stick to channel 1 for probably most of this video. Now, you can select it by tapping it once or tapping multiple channels, but we want to just get into one. Now, I think one of the interesting things about the workflow here is you hold it down to see the settings. I kind of wish it just stayed like that, right? Like for the most part, if I tap 1, I'm selecting 1, just show me the settings, if that makes sense. But hey, if you want to see them, you got to hold it down. That's not a big deal, but I just want to point it out that that's what I would change. So there's a couple different settings, and I want to demonstrate this by bringing the music back in. So you just hear drum mix. I'll take the modulation out for a moment. So just so you can see clearly the demonstration. We got 1. So right now I'm going to go into high, and this is like really the performative part of it, I think, too. So if I wanted the Maestro to perform this filter for me, right, I can sweep out the entire mix right now by setting it to high, and then bring it back in by setting it to low, right? And this isn't slewed at all. It just jumps instantly, right? Keep that in mind. That's no critique of it. I'm just saying that that's something to bear in mind. So those are performance features in another way as well. And you can do this across all channels by selecting them all. And let's set them all to high. So as you see on the LEDs, you see it on the data, they're all just going to output a constant high voltage. Maybe we'll go back in now. And then when will the bass drop? Well, there's that low. Boom. Now there's all the different waveforms now. Square wave. And notice there's no slewing or anything like that. It's just hard edge. We'll go in and go through the different waveforms while we're at it, random. And then we'll talk about modifiers in a moment. But here my filter cutoff is just jumping around. But it's jumping around pretty slowly, right? So you get your clock dividers here. And there's a macro control here for slow, which divides them in half. Which we don't want to do. I want to do the opposite, so I want to speed it up. Speed it up even further. Nope, I'm slowing it down, aren't I? Let's go the other way. Yep. Nope, I'm not. I want to go that way. So we get some more randomness. And I'd imagine there's a button combo to change my incoming clock as well, or my incoming clock PPQN, my clock division, but we won't get into that for this video. I just want to show you that, hey, clock divisions are kind of a key piece here to the workflow. There's also a triplet mode, which will kind of give you some of that syncopation, right? Random isn't the best waveform for this, right? But that's okay. We want to go into these other ones. And I think it's interesting here how they do one thing here I'll point out. We have our ramp wave, our sawtooth, our triangle, and an inverse triangle. And I think it's interesting that they give you the 2 flavors of triangle with modifiers. So you can modify this. We'll take off triplet. A smooth modifier to make it into a sine wave. I think that's interesting. When I think modulation, I think like immediately I want the sine wave, but then I'm wondering if triangle wave is probably the thing that most people are using, and I just don't know what I'm doing. So if you want sine wave, you got to use the smooth modifier. Go into our triangle, use our smooth modifier. The other non-inverted triangle. Go over to our saw waves, and this is an interesting one too, right? It makes you, the smooth modifier is interesting because it makes those waveforms that I didn't think about using, like the ramp wave, pretty usable actually. At least in our current patch. Right? So, and then again, clock divisions. Triplet. And then there is, take our smooth out, I'll go back to the square wave because it's really apparent. There is a modifier for unipolar versus bipolar. So it's unipolar in the first patch, and if we hit bipolar, you'll see on the scope, it's going to go through 0 into the negative territory and then a little on the top. Now, in my patch currently, I'm sending positive cutoff because I'm using CV cutoff. You're not going to hear it sweep through the middle, but just know if you want to get a feel for what the workflow of the Maestro is like, I think that's another good demonstration that like that's how you set the polarity. And I think that's pretty straightforward. I really like how easy all of that was to get going. And I owned this forever ago, like when I first got into Eurorack, and I thought, I think it honestly comes down to like when I first got into it, I didn't really understand what high and low meant, and I was expecting onboard attenuation, and there is onboard attenuation, but I just think I got a little confused by implementation of those sort of things and the polarity and having to hold things down for the button combos, and I was just a little overwhelmed. But I think now I'm looking at this like it is actually quite easy to just be like, okay, I want channel 5. Hold down channel 5, I want a triangle wave, and I want a division here. And it's really easy to get a lot of clock modulation sources going in that way, where making a direct comparison to PAMs, you'd have to scan over using that encoder, get over to that channel, hold the button down and go into it, go over into the waveform, press that down, select your waveform, go over to your clock division or exit out to go to your clock division. Anyway, it's just to say that like I think it's quite immediate on the Maestro, and I really appreciate it. Now, there is a chain option as well, and that's something I don't dislike, but I just don't know if I see a need for this. Now, I hold this down, I hit chain. I can't mute it while I'm in chain mode, but you can select one. We've got the chain menu open while it's still there, and you select different waveforms to chain them. Sorry, I'm shaking the whole rig. And then when I exit chain, now you'll see it scanning through, and again, I wish this would hold itself open, and it'll cycle through. So you can sequence LFOs this way, and that sounds really interesting. I bet there's a really crazy wavetable scan that you could probably do with this, but that's just like something that seems kind of core to the Maestro that I never even thought to use, which if this is jumping out at you like, oh, I have a this with this input, I would love to use that. Then modular is just that, and fill your boots. But I don't know if I enjoy that one so much, or I don't know if I found a use for it yet. How's that? So I hold chain down, the menu is blinking to show that I'm in the chain mode, and to leave it, I think I have to press just one. And then when I leave now, we've gone back into the non-chain mode. Yeah. Anyway, something that's interesting. And then I did want to touch on one thing that, again, I think this was added in an update and not in the original firmware, but I could be wrong. If you hold the high and mute buttons, there's internal attenuation. Hold the high and mute buttons together, it will open the internal output attenuation menu. Here the timing buttons can be used to reduce the voltage. So, hey, that's a big button combo. I just wish that, I don't know, this was really easy, right? And this button combo to reduce it. Yeah, so more reduction on this end if you really want to narrow it down. A little less, a little more. Or if you want to change your overall range. I don't know. For me, I'm just going to use an external attenuator module. I would forgo that chaining stuff for the attenuation. I know I talked a lot about the attenuation side of things on my dream modulation source video, and I just wish that they were on here. That's like, I'd say that's the only piece of the Maestro that I'm really like, it's just missing that. It's just missing the attenuation. So, but again, nobody makes that perfect modulation source that I discussed in that video. So if there's just one piece that's missing that can be made up easily in like lapsus os or another attenuator, I'm happy to live with that. And I like the Maestro a lot, honestly. Jumping back into it, it's really easy to just have 6 channels of clocked modulation that can be either unclocked or hard to get at in a lot of other modules. So I appreciate that a lot, and I think the Maestro is definitely gonna stay in the case, at least until I can make that or find that dream modulation source I discussed. So, hey, I'm Tafony. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.